This is GCSE Mathematics Practice Test Set 2, Paper 2F. Question 1. Write 0.013 as a fraction. Well, we need to know place value here, so the first 0 after the decimal point is in the tens column, the 1 is in the hundreds column, and the 3 is in the thousands column. So altogether, if we make this into thousands, we have 13 thousandths. Question 2. Change 6.4 centimetres into millimetres. Well, the first thing we need to know is that 1 centimetre equals 10 millimetres. So if we times that by 10, we get 64 millimetres. Question 3. Here's a cuboid. How many vertices does a cuboid have? Vertices is just a mathematical word for corners. So in this case, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then there's one just back here where we can't quite see it, 8. So it has 8 vertices. Question 4. Find the value of 7 to the power of 4. That just means 7 times 7 times 7 times 7. If we put that into our calculator, you get 2,401. Question 5. Here are some patterns made from triangles. Complete the table. Well, we can see that each time we're adding 2 extra triangles to the previous pattern. And this is reflected in here. So we're just doubling the pattern number, just timesing that by 2. So in here we'll get 2 more, which is 8, and 2 more, which is 10. How many triangles will be in pattern number 12? Well, because we've just said that we're timesing by 2 here, then all we need to do is times the pattern number by 2. So we'll get 24 triangles. Luke says that pattern number 40 has 82 triangles. Explain why he's wrong. Well, as we've just explained, there's we're doubling the pattern number, so 40 times 2 should be 80. So there are 80 triangles in pattern 40. Question 6. Janet sends parcels by Parcel Express. The table shows information about the cost of sending a parcel by Parcel Express. The table below gives information about the numbers and weights of the parcels Janet sent in April and May. Janet could have sent her parcels by Parcels Argo. The table below shows information about the cost of sending by Parcels Argo. Janet thinks that it would be cheaper to send the parcels by Parcels Argo. Is she correct? Well, to send it by Parcel Express, altogether here, in April and May, we have 44 parcels being sent that are less than 2 kilograms. In April and May for between 2 and 5 kilograms, we have 55 parcels being sent. And for between 5 and 10 kilograms, we have 51 parcels being sent. So if we multiply that by the price, so the prices are up here. So 44 parcels at £3.80. That will give us £167.20. We've got 55 parcels at £5.99. So that's the price for 2 kilograms and 5 kilograms. That will give us £329.45. Again, you can use a calculator for all of this. And then finally, we've got 51 parcels at £7.14 for 5 to 10 kilograms, which gives us £364.14. And if we add all those up, again, make sure you're using a calculator for this. Don't make any silly mistakes not using a calculator. You get £860.79. Altogether, we will have, we've got 106 there, plus 44, gives us 150 parcels. So we've got 150 parcels at £5.99. Again, you can use a calculator that just to double check, and that should give you £898.50. So that's the price for the second company, that's the price for the first company. So actually, it is cheaper by Parcel Express, so we need to write that. So no, Parcel Express are cheaper. Again, make sure you use your calculator at each stage and make sure you check the numbers that you're putting in. Question 7. Here is a sketch of the end of the roof of a toy house. Draw an accurate diagram of the end of the roof. So, the first thing we need to do is we need to get our ruler and we need to measure out the 8 centimetres. So, measure all the way along to 8 centimetres as accurately as you can. You can then get rid of the ruler. We then need to get our protractor, put it at the end, so the crosshair is right in the centre and right on the end of that line, as accurately as you possibly can. We then need to measure to 50 degrees, which is just there, and we can draw that line in. Again, we can use our ruler. Be as accurate as you possibly can with this, and draw that in just long enough to go past there just for now. We can now measure the angle on the other side. So again, just put your crosshair right on the end of the line as accurate as you possibly can. And this time I'm measuring up from 0. You can see I'm just a little bit out there, so I'm just going to move back down a little bit. Measure from 0 all the way up to 50, so we're using the inside numbers this time. So that will be just there. And again, now we can get rid of our protractor, and we can use our ruler just to measure through that mark. We just need to move that a little bit. Back to measure it to that. We can move it down. As accurately as you can with all this. And we can draw it through. Now these extra bits here don't matter. This is you working out. Alright? So don't worry. Just make sure you've got that at 50 degrees, that at 50 degrees, and make sure that that is at 8 centimetres. And make sure you label it so the person that's marking knows what you've done. I'm just a little bit out here. It's quite difficult to do on the interactive whiteboard, so make sure you are as accurate as possible. You're only allowed to be 2 degrees out in the actual exam. Question 8. On the probability scale, mark with a cross the probability that you will have something to drink tomorrow. Well, we have to have something to drink to live, so we're going to put that at certain. So that would be at 1, and we'll label that with an A. A teacher chosen at random was born on a Monday. Well, there are 7 days in a week, so if we, in our heads, just split this into 7 pieces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, a little bit too many. A little bit too few, sorry. So we'll just clear those. So we'll just make sure you're as accurate as possible with this. Alright, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 pieces. So one piece is going to be just there, which we'll label that B. It says a fair 6-sided dice will show an even number. Well, there are 3 even numbers on a dice, and there are 6 numbers altogether. So 3 out of 6 is the same as a half, or 0.05. So that will be in the middle there. We can label that C. Question 9. Jason collected some information about the heights of 19 plants. This information is shown in the stem and leaf diagram. And the key here says that 4 line 8 means 48 millimetres. So if you're ever asked to draw a stem and leaf diagram, make sure you always include a key. It says find the median. Well, the median is the middle number. Now, there are 19 plants. It tells us that just there. So if we have 9 numbers, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The 10th one would be in the middle, and then we'd have another 9 after it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that would be the 10th number is the one that we're after. So we're after the 10th number. So to do that, we just count up from the beginning. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And that would be the 10th number there. So the answer is 30 millimetres. Question 10. Some of the land in the Netherlands is used to grow bulbs. The table shows the percentage of this land used to grow the different types of bulbs. Work out the value of X. Well, percentages must add up to 100%. So if we add all those percentages up that we've already got, that would add up to 77%. And if we take that off 100%, we end up with 23% left for lilies. The area of land used to grow bulbs for hyacinths is 1,200 hectares. Work out the area of land used to grow bulbs for daffodils. So for hyacinths, this is this number here. So 8% of the land must be equal to 1,200 hectares, because that's what it's telling us. So to work out the amount for daffodils, we want 12%. So the way I would do this is to divide by 8, because we've got a calculator for this, to find 1%. So if we divide that by 8, 1,200 divided by 8 is 150 hectares. So 1% of the land must be 150 hectares. and then times by 12 to get up to the 12% that we're after. And 150 times by 12 is 1800. So that's 1,800 hectares. Question 11. Barbara has a tube of sweets. There are 5 sweets in the tube. There is 1 sweet of each of these colours in the tube. Barbara takes 2 sweets at random from the tube. Write down all the possible combinations. So we're after all the different ways that she could do this. So if we pull out a red, then she could get a blue with that, or she could get a green with that, or a yellow, or a pink. So that's all the different combinations for pulling out a red and then all the different colours with it. If we pulled out a blue, then we've already had the red, so all we need to look at is the blue and green, the blue and yellow, and the blue and pink. If we then pull out a green, we could have green with yellow, because we've already had green and blue and green and red. We could have green and pink. If we pulled out a yellow, then the only option for that would be for pink, because we've already had yellow with all the other colours. So altogether there, we've got 10 different ways of doing that. It says, what is the probability that Barbara takes a red sweet out and a yellow sweet? So we're after the red with a yellow, which is this one here. And there's only one way of doing that, and there are 10 ways of pulling sweets out, so it's 1 out of 10. Question 12. Ali takes his car to a garage. The car has a 5,000 mile service and it also has an MOT. So we're looking at this one here and this price here. It says work out Ali's total bill. So the price for the service is £79 plus VAT at 20%. Now to do that with a calculator, to increase something by 20%, we multiply by 1.2. This is 100% and this is the 20%. So 1.2 times by 79 is £94.80. Now you absolutely could have just found 10%, which is £7.90, and double it and then add it on. That's absolutely fine as well, but with a calculator, it's best that we know how to use these multipliers. It's a lot quicker. Again, to increase by 20%, we want to multiply by 1.2, and the cost of an MOT was £39. So 1.2 times £39 is £46.80. Doing it this way really cuts down on mistakes. Add those together, we get £141.60. Ali bought his car for £20,000. The car depreciated. Now that word depreciated means to go down in value by 20% in the first year, and it goes down in value by 10% in the second year. Work out the value of the car at the end of the second year. Well, again, on this one we could do this using non-calculator methods by working out 10% and doubling it, but I'm going to do it using a multiplier. So if you knock 20% off 100%, you're left with 80%, which is the same as 0.8 as a decimal. So if we just do 0.8 times 20,000, that will give us 16,000. And again, you could probably do that in your head. 10% would be 2,000, so 20% would be 4,000 and take that off. It gets down to 16,000. We then want to knock 10% off. Now 10% off 100% is 90%, which is 0.9 as a multiplier. And the value of the car is only 16,000 in the second year. So we do 0.9 times 16,000, and that gives us £14,400 for the value of the car after 2 years. Again, you could have just worked out 10% of 16,000, which is 1,600, and take it off. Absolutely fine, but using a multiplier is the best way for that. Question 13, the diagram shows a prism. A prism is just a 3D shape that's the same all the way through. So this is a trapezium all the way through. In the space below, sketch, so we don't need to do this accurately, the front elevation. So front elevation means what the shape would look like just from the front, from the direction of the arrow, so from this direction. So all it's after is the sketch of a trapezium like that. So this shape would be a trapezium all the way through. Question 14. Becky says, when you square a prime number, you always get an odd number. Write down an example. So you don't need to write down any working out here, you can just write down an example. Well, the first prime number is 2, and 2 squared is 4. So 4 is odd. So that would give an example to show that she's wrong. James says, when you cube any negative number, you always get a negative number. James is right. Explain why. Well, if you're cubing a negative number, that means you're doing negative times a negative times a negative. Now, a negative times a negative, we know, is a positive number. So if you're doing a positive times a negative, That will give us a negative answer. Question 15. There are some blue counters, red counters and green counters in the bag. There are twice as many blue counters in the bag as red, and there are 3 times as many red as there are green. Work out the ratio of blue to red to green. So, the ratio of blue to red to green, there is the least amount of green counters. So if we said that there was 1 green counter in this bag, we'll start with the greens. There are 3 times as many reds, so that means there would have to be 3 reds. And then it says there are twice as many blues as reds, so 2 lots of 3 would be 6. So the ratio would be 6 to 3 to 1. Question 16. Lev writes down the following without doing the exact calculation. Now this is really important. Usually I would tell you to write down the exact calculation to explain why someone's wrong, but in this case it's saying not to do that. You've got to actually explain why it cannot be correct, so without actually working it out. Now the only way we could do that is by looking at the numbers. So 2/3 is more than a half, and 5/8 is also more than a half. So if you're adding 2 numbers together that's more than a half, you should end up with something that's more than a full one, and that there is less than a full one, or less than a whole. So what we need to be writing down is both 2/3 and 5/8 are more than a half. So if you add them together, you would get more than a whole. 7/11 is less than a whole. So a little bit difficult, that one. It's a little bit different to what you're used to. Asking not to do it with a proper calculation, but you've just got to write down exactly what you see there. Question 17. ABC is a straight line. Angle BCD is 38 degrees and the reflex angle BCD is 250 degrees as it shows on the diagram. Work out the size of the angle marked X and give reasons for each stage you're working out. So the first one we're going to work out is this one. And we know that angles around a point add up to 360, so that must be 110 degrees. Now, to write that down, we're going to say that angle, so that's the special symbol for angle, BDC, so that angle there that just worked out is angle BDC, equals 110 degrees because angles around a point add up to 360 degrees. The next thing we can work out is this angle here. And now we know angles on a triangle add up to 180, so if we take 110 and 38 off 180, we get left with 32 degrees. Again, you can use a calculator for that, but we need to write down what we're doing. So angle, and this time we're looking at DBC, so that's the angle we're drawing out. So angle DBC equals 32 degrees because angles in a triangle add up to 180 degrees. Now a lot of people miss that mark because instead of saying add up to, they say equals. And that would mean that every single angle in there would be 180. That's what equals means. And that's not true. It means that they actually add up to 180. So you've got to write it out properly in full. Then we know that angles on a straight line add up to 180 again. So x is just going to be 180 minus 32. So x equals 180 minus 32, which is 148 degrees, because angles in a triangle, I'm going back to the previous one, angles on a straight line, add up to 180 degrees. Again, use that add up to. Now, I've just made a cardinal mistake here. This line across here is where your question will get scanned into a computer to be marked. Now, if you write below that line, anything you write below that will not come up on the computer screen when the person's marking it. So actually, in the exam, if you've done that and you've had to go below the line, make sure you fit it in this space here. Okay, I've just done it so it's nice and clear there. Make sure it's above the line. Question 18. Show the inequality minus 2 is less than or equal to x is less than 3 on the number line below. So x can be anywhere between minus 2 and 3. So we put dots above minus 2 and 3. Now when it can be equal to, we colour the dot in. So x can be equal to minus 2, so we colour that dot in, but it can't be equal to 3, it's got to be less than it, so we leave that one empty. And it could be anything in between there, so we draw a line in between like that. Solve the inequality 4y plus 7 is less than 16. So we solve this in the same way as a normal equation. We take 7 off both sides, which will give us 4y is less than 9. A lot of people change this to an equal sign, and that changes what we're doing there. Even though it's done in the exact same way, you can't do that. You've got to keep it as a less than sign. And then if we divide by 4 to get what 1y would be, 1y and 9 divided by 4 is 2.25. You can do that on a calculator, or you could even leave it as 9 over 4. That would be absolutely fine as well, and leave it as an improper fraction. But y is less than 2.25. Make sure you write it out in full with the less than sign on the answer line. Question 19. A water container has 19.5 litres of water in it, and a cup holds 210 millilitres. At most, 92 cups can be filled completely from the container. Explain why. Well, first of all, we've got millilitres and we've got litres. So I'm going to convert 19.5 to millilitres. There are 1,000 millilitres in a litre, so that would mean we've got 19,500 millilitres in this. If every cup holds 210, if we just divide by 210 millilitres, that will give us 92.857. Always write down your full calculator display there. So we need to write down what that means. 92 cups can be filled fully, and the 93rd cup would only have 0.857, would only be 85% full basically. Question 20. The total cost of 3 apples and 4 pears is £1.84, and the total cost of 5 apples and 2 pears is £1.76. Work out the cost of 1 apple and 1 pear. Well, we've got 3 apples and 4 pears, and that is £1.84. And we've got 5 apples and 2 pears, which is £1.76. So if we set up a simultaneous equation to solve this, it's much easier than trying to figure out what they are just by guessing. And actually you get 0 marks for doing it by guessing, so make sure you do it with simultaneous equations. If I change this one, so I'm going to double everything in this one, so 10 apples and 4 pears would cost me double, and double £1.76 is £3.52. Use a calculator if you need to do that. If I then take the top one from the bottom one, so even though they're not in the right order here, I'm going to take the top one, this one, off the bottom one. So 10 A's take 3 A's would be 7 A's, 4p take 4p is nothing, a £3.52 take £1.84 would be £1.68. So A, or the price of an apple, if you divide by 7, again you can use a calculator, it's 0.24. Now that is pounds, so that would mean that an apple costs 24p. If we substitute that into the first equation, we've got 3 lots of 24p, plus the cost of 4 pears, gives us £1.84. Now if we take the 3 lots of 24p off the £1.84, that would leave us at the 4 pears are worth £1.12. So that 1 pear, divide that by 4, would be 0.28 or 28p. Make sure you do that with a calculator. Don't risk doing that in your head. Under exam conditions, it's really important to use a calculator whenever you need to. Question 21. There are a total of 120 counters in a box. There are only red counters and blue counters, and there are 3 times as many red as there are blue. Carl takes a third of the red counters out. Kerry takes 80% of the blue counters from the box. Work out the ratio of red to blue and give it in your simplest form. Well, break that down into little steps. So, red to blue, in the first case, it says there are 3 times as many reds as there are blues. So the ratio is 3 to 1. We know there are 120 counters in the bag. So 3 add 1 is 4. So if we do 120 divided by 4, which is 30, That means that 3 lots of 30, there must be 90 red counters, and 1 lot of 30, there must be 30 blue counters. So we times each of those by 30, because 120 divided by 4 is 30. A third of 90, so that just means divide by 3. Again, use a calculator if you're struggling with that in exam conditions. Gives you 30. So if we take 30 off that, we end up with 60 red counters in the bag. 80% of 30, again, like we did earlier, we're going to use a multiplier. So 0.8 times 30 would give you 24. So if you're taking 24 counters out of blue counters out of the bag, that would leave you with just 6. So the ratio is 60 to 6. Now obviously both of those can be divided by 6. If you divide those by 6, you get 10 to 1. Question 22. Shalom hires a chainsaw from Saws or Us. The graph shows the cost of hiring a chainsaw from Saws for Us up to 12 days. Find the cost of hiring it for 6 days. So along the bottom, days along the bottom, as accurately as you possibly can, you go up to the line and across over here. And you can see that that's exactly in the middle of 15 and 20. So in the middle of 15 and 20 is £17.50. It says the cost of hiring a chainsaw from Saws or Us is £10 plus a daily rate. Work out the daily rate. So for no days it costs £10. So straight away you're getting charged £10 right at the start. After 2 days, so if I go along here, the cost is £12.50. So for 2 days, it must have cost me £2.50. That's for 2 days. So for 1 day, if we half that, that's £1.25. So the daily rate is £1.25. So you're getting charged £10 right at the start as like a hiring fee, and then every day you keep it after that, it's £1.25. Sloan wants to compare the cost of hiring a chainsaw from Saws or Us and from Saws to You. Saws to You charge £3 for each day of hire. Sloan hires chainsaws for different periods of time, so she wants to know the cheapest company for different days. So which of these two companies is cheaper to hire a chainsaw from? Show you working. Well, I'm going to go back to the graph here. Basically, the second company doesn't charge you this £10 at the start. Just if you're not hiring it at all, it costs you nothing. But then for 10 days, 10 lots of 3 would cost you £30. So if we get our ruler and we join that up, again be as accurately as you possibly can. We can see that for anything up to 6 days, it is cheaper to buy from the second company. Then after 6 days, it gets more expensive. So this is you working out, this line here is you working out for this next answer. So what you need to be writing is Saws to You, the second company, are cheaper for 5 days or less. For 6 days plus, it is cheaper from Saws or Us. So use the graph as you're working out there, really, really important, and be as accurate as you possibly can. Question 23. A square has sides lengths of 8.4 centimetres. Work out the length of the diagonal of the square. Give your answer to correct the 3 significant figures. Now the diagonal of the square means from corner to corner like that. So if that's 8.4 and that's 8.4, and we know that that's a right angle, we've actually got a right angle triangle in there, so we're going to be using Pythagoras Theorem. So Pythagoras says that the hypotenuse squared, so this is the hypotenuse, the diagonal, is equal to the 2 shorter sides squared and added together. So to work out x, we need to do the square root of 8.4 squared plus 8.4 squared. Okay? In your calculator, make sure that that line goes all the way over the 8.4 squareds to the end, or that you put it in brackets with the square root sign at the front. Really important to make sure it's all square rooted. And then if you get that in your calculator, you should get 11.87939 going on for quite a bit. But it asks for 3 significant figures. So 3 significant figures means 3 numbers from the front, and that's where we want to cut off. So it's going to be 11.8, but it will round up if this number's a 5 or more, which it is. So it's going to be 11.9 centimetres. Question 24. The diagram shows a circular pond with a path around it. The pond has a radius of 5 metres and the path has a radius of, has a width of 1 metre. Work out the area of the path. Well, basically, we've just got two circles, a big circle and a small circle. The small circle has a radius of 5 and the big circle has a radius of 6. So 5 add 1. So to work out the area of the grey bit, we need to know that the area of a circle is pi r squared for starters. So the big circle is pi times 6 squared, and we need to take away from that the smaller circle, which is pi times 5 squared. And again, you can put that straight into your calculator. You don't need to mess around working each bit out. And that will give you 34.5575 ... But it asks for 3 significant figures again. So again, we're after the 3 most important numbers, which is up to there. And if that's a 5 or more, this number rounds up. So it'll be 34.6. Question 25. Here is a right angled triangle. Work out the size of the angle marked X. Give your answer to the nearest degree. Now, because it's a right angled triangle, we're going to be using either Pythagoras or trigonometry. And this time it's trigonometry because we're using an angle. Pythagoras is just for the length of sides. So, if you use the acronym SOHCAHTOA, we need to figure out which one of those we're using, sin, cos or tan. Well, that there is the opposite, and that there is the adjacent, because this here is the hypotenuse. So we've got the opposite and the adjacent. So the opposite with, SOHCAHTOA, that should be in here there. So the one with the opposite and the adjacent is tan. So we're going to be using TOA. So tan X is equal to the opposite, which is 14, over the adjacent, which is 7.5. And then to work out X, we do inverse tan. So you press Shift and tan on your calculator. That'll open your brackets for you. And then you do 14 divided by 7.5. And that should give you an answer of 61.8214 going on. But it says to the nearest degree. So because that's an 8, that will round up to 62 degrees. Question 26. A box is on a table. The area of the box in contact with the table is 1500 centimetres squared. The pressure of the table is 28 newtons per metre squared. Work out the force. Now you're told here that the force is, the pressure is equal to force divided by the area. So the force divided by the area. So here we've got that the contact, the area is 1500 centimetres squared, but this is measured in metres squared. So to convert 1500 centimetres squared into metres squared, we need to divide by 100 and then divide by 100 again, because 1 metre squared is 100 by 100 centimetres, which gives us 0.15 metres squared. Now, the pressure exerted is 28 newtons per metre squared, and the force, that's equal to the force divided by the area. So that's the numbers put into the formula we've got up here. Then to rearrange that to work out the force, we just take this, divide by 0.15, and we multiply both sides by 0.15. So we end up with 28 multiplied by 0.15, which gives you 4.2 newtons. Question 27. Kelvin and Mamady are in the same class. The probability that Kelvin arrives on time is 0.7, and the probability that Mamady arrives on time is 0.9. Complete the tree diagram. Well, for Kelvin being on time is 0.7, and obviously being not on time, they're mutually exclusive, so that would be 0.3, because they need to add up to a whole one. Mamady being on time is 0.9, so her being late will be 0.1, 0.9, and 0.1. So these bits need to add up to a full one. It says work out the probability that Kelvin and Mamady both arrive on time. So we're going to go up this branch and up this branch, and we multiply along the branches because we want this to happen and this to happen. So we do 0.7 times 0.9, and again use your calculator, gives you 0.63.